This is section 5.5, and our first concept will write fractions as decimals. So step 1 will divide the numerator by the denominator, and we'll continue dividing until the quotient either gives us a terminating decimal or a repeating decimal. So where I have 3/5, that's 3 divided by 5. So I'm going to take 3 and divide it by 5, and I have a terminating decimal, 0.6. Negative 68/25 is negative 68 divided by 25. So we will divide, and here we ended up putting 2 zeros onto the dividend, and we got a terminating decimal, 2.72. So this time we're going to write this mixed number as a decimal, and we're going to recognize that 3 and 5/8 is 3 plus 5/8. So it's going to be 3 point something. And so we'll figure out what 5/8 looks like by dividing 5 by 8. And when I divide 5 by 8, I get 0.625. So 3 and 5/8 will be 3.625. Next, I'm going to convert this fraction to a repeating decimal. So when I take 4 and divide it by 9, as I keep putting zeros into the dividend and dividing, I recognize a pattern where that 4 is repeating. And so we use a bar to indicate a repeating decimal. So this is 0.4 repeating. I'm going to take negative 3/22, and this is also going to turn into a repeating decimal. I have 0.1363, and I recognize that it's the 3/6 that's going to repeat. So if you look at this chart here, we have some common fractions. 1/4 is 0.25. 2/4 is a half, or 0.5, and 3/4 is 0.75, and you probably recognize those. Maybe you recognize that 1/3 is 0.3 repeating, and 2/3 is 0.6 repeating, but we're showing a bunch of fractions so you can see the pattern. 1/9 is 0.111 repeating, 2/9 is 0.2 repeating, 3/9 0.3, 4/9, 0.4 repeating. So this is just an interesting pattern that you can recognize. To convert a fraction to a decimal with rounding. So if you're told to round to a particular place, like 162/7 to the 10th place, you have to take 162 and divide by 7, and you'll have to go one extra place. We'll have to divide this out to the 100th place so we can go back to the 10th place and make a decision whether to keep it or round up. And the number 4 in the 100th place tells me not to round up. So to the nearest 10th, I'm going to have 23 and 1/10. So here we have, we're going to write decimals as fractions. So what we do with this is we read it, and then we write it, and then we reduce it. So we recognize 0.475 is 475 thousandths, and then I will reduce that to 19/40ths. Negative 1.25 is read negative 1 and 25 hundredths, or negative 125 hundredths. And then we will reduce that to negative 5/4. Looking at the area of a triangle, remember that the formula is 1/2 times the base times the height, and in this chapter we will find the area of a triangle that involves decimals. So we will multiply 1/2 and use 0.5 since we're doing all decimals. So it's going to be 0.5 times the base times the height. And so that's what's going on here. And we have 14.28 Again, feet times feet gives us the square feet for area. And here's skill practice problems for you to